Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, Bucks, Brewers, Packers, Badgers fans. At least I hope you're fans of one of those teams. Good evening. I hope you are all out there doing well. Welcome to Cut the BS live in the Game On Wisconsin studios, brought to you by Artec Ventures. I am your host, Brandon. There is no BS without me. My name is Brandon Snide. You can go ahead and follow me on Twitter at Brandon_Snide. Also, don't forget to follow Game On Wisconsin wherever you have social media or wherever you have podcasts. You can always listen to all of our live shows in the podcast form as soon as they conclude each night. You can follow them wherever you may get podcasts, Google, Spotify, Apple, all that good stuff. Thank you guys again for tuning into what me and Sanjay were just talking about. Always a jam-packed episode because there's always something to talk about with our teams, unfortunately. And this week we got a couple news to break down, and we'll dive into it. But if you guys are on the live stream, good evening. Happy Thursday. One more day till Saturday. One more day till the weekend. If you are listening on your smart device, wherever you may be, thank you guys for tuning in. I say it every time I come onto a show, and I truly mean it. It is an absolute honor and privilege to be here talking about our favorite teams with you. Of course, we're talking about our Wisconsin sports teams. Packers and Bucks are going to lead the way tonight. But tonight, as you can see, joined by another handsome man himself, a special guest, none other than Sanjay Murthy from the Freezer podcast. He is here to join me and talk about some Bucks news, some Bucks blunders, as I called them the other day, and some Packers news. You can go ahead and follow Sanjay on Twitter at Sanjay X Murthy. Sanjay, good evening. Before we get into everything, I also do want to make a note real quick. If you're not tuned into the Freezer podcast on Monday evenings at 7 p.m. every Monday, you must. It's a must-listen show. It's one of my favorite shows. Matt Jensen and Sanjay and Fred, you guys do an awesome job out there. So big fans of that show. And if you aren't, follow that show. Give it a follow, give it a listen, give it a download, give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe, do something with it. Anyway, Sanjay, good evening, my friend. How are you doing?
Awesome, man. It's always looking forward to these Thursdays. It's always a great time. It's a great time to be a sports fan in the state of Wisconsin.
Sure.
I mean, if you didn't just miss the big win of the Badgers just made on the number 3 team, a Marquette made on the number 16 team. I mean, there's wins across the board in the state. So, but there's some losses too, and I'm sure we're going to talk about it right now with our fellow Bucks. But yeah, it's great to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're tuning in or you're not aware, Sanjay is going to join me throughout the year. We're going to do mostly Bucks. We're going to do a little bit of Packers. There's always some Packers news, as we were just talking about prior to the show starting. But we are going to start with the Milwaukee Bucks. I'm going to get Sanjay's thoughts. The last 2 games they've lost. He lost to the NBA worst team, Detroit Pistons at home, 115-106. Then last night, a loss to Toronto, 117-111. We're going to get to the boogie stuff, Sanjay, but I just want your thoughts on the blunders of the Bucks. They're dealing with COVID. They're dealing with injuries. They're dealing with people getting waived. What are your thoughts in the last couple weeks or so here with the Milwaukee Bucks?
Well, it just seems like there was like that half a week where we had everybody back, and
they won like 5 straight.
Yeah, and it was like, oh, this is what it looks like, right? When we have everybody on the roster playing. Yeah, this is awesome. And now it seems like everything's just crashing to a weird halt. Like we're become sellers in a trade. Not that we're sellers, but it just seems like now we have these blunders against 2 really favorable opponents on the schedule and on paper. But they always say, you're always going to get someone's punch as the defending champions. Everybody wants, to say that they got to beat the defending champions, regardless if you're, the winless Pistons. I mean, they have wins, but like against us, it seems like they have no wins.
Well, they haven't in years.
Right.
That was their first loss under Coach Bud.
Yeah, I was going to say it had to have been since 2018 or something.
Yeah, it's been a while.
And then obviously against Toronto, who's always going to give us, Coach Nurse is always great. And I think it's just weird how we kind of play down to Toronto. I don't know what it is, but it just seems like they have our number. It's like San Francisco against the Rams. It's kind of like just any of those, just that weird rivalry where you're just like, damn, why do we always lose this team? So it don't matter what, what roster, and it's always Van Vliet. I'm gonna tell you right now,
Oh
it's
my
always
God,
Van
dude.
Vliet that just destroys us.
Goodness.
So anyway, yeah, it's a weird couple games. It's sad just to know that, okay, this is where the worst can possibly happen, like where we lose to like bad teams, but it's going to happen in the season. We've already alluded to this before where, let's just get into the playoffs. I don't know if it's really important that we need a 1, 2, or 3 seed. Obviously I wouldn't want to be a 4, 5, 6 probably, but let's just get into the playoffs and then, we'll let it, the chips fall where they may fall. But I think right now it's just one of those like little growing pains, like, hey, let's just get through the the Christmas, let's get through the holidays, and then let's get into February as kind of the goal. And then I think things kind of ramp up in the beginning of February.
Yeah, you made some excellent points. The one that I want to touch on, because it drives me absolutely nuts, man, is Fred VanVleet. He does not miss, dude. He does. Like when he was pulling up last night from like 30, 35, two guys on him. He was really never open. I thought they defended him pretty well, but it just the ball doesn't even nick the rim, bro. It just go. I mean,
he drinks Bucks juice. He's got like this one bottle in his locker that he's like, oh, it's the Bucks tonight. All
You're not wrong.
And then something happens, like Space Jam or whatever, touches that juice, and he's on fire. So I don't understand.
You're absolutely not wrong, man. I don't understand it. We saw it in 2019. He didn't do nothing in the playoffs until that Eastern Conference Finals in 2019.
He did it earlier this year too. We played him before too, and he destroyed us.
They beat us, and we were short, and they were shorthanded, and we had a full team, and they beat us. If you're looking at the Milwaukee Bucks right now, there's a couple things that kind of stick out to me. Right now, they're the 3 seed. If the season, we always play this. If the season were to end today, we're not, but we're just saying right now, as it sits, they're third best team in the Eastern Conference. They're 2.5 games from the 1 seed. I mean, I'm fine with where they're at. I understand the frustration if there is some. For me, I got frustrated last night because number one, I hate Toronto. When they lost to the Pistons, I was kind of like, whatever. And then I put on,
you can give up one. Sure.
You can, it's going to you're not going to they beat them for 3 straight years. I mean, eventually Detroit's going to win.
It felt bad, right? You're just here's
like,
a pity win for you. Here you go.
It's a division opponent. You play them enough times. They're going to eventually.
Simone Bay or whatever his name, Bay.
Sadiq
Bay had 39 points or whatever it was. So I don't remember. I mean, that was out of nowhere. So I don't know what. I mean, guy's good. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, he's got a lot of potential. I think he's got a pretty high ceiling, but holy crap.
Well, you're right though. And the other point I want to touch on, and you made it an excellent point, is this is new for us as Milwaukee Bucks fans, really Wisconsin fans. We have this first title in 10 years. We have a target on our back. Like, we are the number 1 team. People, when we go to Orlando, when we go to New Orleans, when we go to when we're at home and Detroit comes here or Toronto comes here, we say in the NFL world, we say the Vikings, when they play the Packers, it's their Super Bowl. When the Bears play the Packers, it's their Super Bowl. This is all these teams have to play for. Like, this is it. So when they come to Milwaukee or Milwaukee goes there, it's always a big game for the opposing teams. And if you're Milwaukee, you didn't get the 1 seed last year. You suffered a ton of injuries last year, especially in the playoffs. Everybody knows what happened to Giannis in the playoffs. And you ended up winning the finals. Right now, you're the 3 seed. You're 25-15. You're, like I mentioned before, you're 2.5 games out of first place. You obviously lost the last 2, but you're 6-10 overall. And that maintain where you're at right now, I'm fine with that. Keep in mind, last night, not that it may have make a difference or not. Like you said, Nick Nurse does have Milwaukee's number. Fred VanVleet, like we just mentioned, as Jacob alluded to over on the YouTube comments, is Rockford, Illinois' own. And Pascal Siakam's a really good player. But you didn't have Giannis. You didn't have Pat Connaughton. You didn't have Grayson Allen. Coach Bud was on the COVID list, and then George Hill was also on the COVID list. You're losing a big chunk of your players. Now, those guys did play, however, against Detroit. There's not a whole lot of excuses about Detroit, but Detroit shot 64% from the 3-point range. I mean, you're probably going to lose more time than not, no matter what team that is or what teams you're facing. And then today news broke earlier this afternoon that Jrue Holiday was added to the COVID list. So the Bucks are dealing with a lot, Sanjay. They're dealing with a lot of injuries. Giannis is going to be back tomorrow. The Bucks start a 3-game road trip starting tomorrow at Brooklyn. He was added. He's back on the starting lineup. He had a non-COVID illness. But you're probably not going to have Pat Connaughton. You're not going to have Grayson Allen. You're not going to have Jrue Holiday. I mean, these are core pieces with this team. And then you talk about Brook Lopez not being there, obviously because of his injury to his back. And we'll talk about the Boogie Cousins stuff later on in a couple minutes. But how does this team overcome this? I mean, is this something where like Giannis can just, he's so good that it doesn't matter? I mean, Pat Connaughton, Grayson Allen, Drew Holiday, those are big pieces to an offense and defense that has led you to success.
I think it's all the mindset of where this team wants to be. If they're looking to be the number 1 seed, then yeah, you're going to need to have finals MVP Giannis show up tomorrow. Like that, Brooklyn, this is a home game for Brooklyn, right?
Correct. They're at Brooklyn.
No Kyrie. That's a huge, that's
good
huge
note.
Just developments in the sense of just the NBA season, because, whatever happens in the seedings, you have to factor in, are you getting half a Kyrie, or are you going to get whatever Kyrie? And so if you have the higher seed comparably to Brooklyn, you have more games at your house than they do at their house. Like that kind, I mean, speaking in the sense of like, if you win your 2 at home, that kind of thing, or if you at least steal 1 at their house, like that plays a factor, right? Because this guy is good. The big 3 is big 3. Like, they know how to score. So you start to factor all those things into this one game that's, just a regular season game. Now, the importance level is based on what you want seeding wise. If you're just like, yo, let's just try to stay healthy, let's just get through the season, and, we'll be a 3 or 4 seed. Okay, sure. Then maybe you don't take this game as seriously and, see what Giannis can do on his shoulders with, a banged up roster. You still have Chris, you still have Bobby, you still have, some pieces that are obviously huge contributors, but this is where your development of Jordan Nwora, and you have some of your other guys that have, maybe even Wes Matthews gets a little bit more involved. You have to factor in these other guys that have had like minimal play time, but at the same time, they've seen big spots in the game. So maybe they see a bigger role, obviously, with all these other players out. So I think there's a lot of just chemistry that can be fixed, or not fixed, but like, worked on.
Good
so
point.
I think maybe that's what they look at. But again, it's based on, if you want this 1 seed, you have to kind of go win this game, because the series, head or matchup is going to matter come seeding time. So then you just got to go win this game.
Yeah, no, that's I like your point about the chemistry, because you're right. Nwora wasn't really a part of that playoff run last year. Obviously, Wes Matthews was not either. Grayson Allen, he's on the COVID list. He wasn't either last year, but he's been playing pretty much all year. I think this is his first stretch of games that he's missed. It's a good point. And I think if you're the Milwaukee Bucks, look, you're Giannis, you're Chris Middleton, Drew Holiday. Those are the 3 that's important. Remain healthy. I don't want to say you sleepwalk to the playoffs, but we're kind of seeing the NBA trend in that direction. We kind of seen it start with Kawhi Leonard back in with the Raptors, and obviously in 2019, and they ran into the Bucks and took care of the Bucks and ended up winning a championship. We're kind of seeing, and that's why I said just maintain where you're at. Maintain where you're at. Remain in the top 3, top 4 seed. When it comes down to the crunch time, I'm assuming you're going to have Brook Lopez. It seems like he's close to coming back, and I'll talk about that on the next segment. But you get guys like that back. Hopefully, the NBA is going to pull back their COVID testing, I think January 8th. So what is that, Saturday? Saturday. So they're going to pull back that testing. You're not going to test every day. Right now, we're seeing guys test every day. And if you turn on Twitter every morning and then check in at noon, you got like 25 guys on the COVID list. So that's kind of what I think you're seeing. And the reason they're pulling that testing back, if you're unfamiliar, is that they have it every day now because of the holiday. So what they're doing is testing guys every day. January 8th comes, they're going to kind of push it back to where they are. But I said on the show, Sanjay, I think it was the first one we had with you, and I said the season for me, the basketball season, doesn't start until December 25th. And that's the Christmas day. Everybody knows, the NFL overtook them this year. I don't know if you saw the ratings, but usually that's like the marquee game for, NBA fans and the association in itself. But I'm pulling back a little bit on that, not because the Bucks are struggling right now, not because they lost 2 games. January 21st, Sanjay, is a day I'm looking at, and I think that's when the season for the Milwaukee Bucks is going to start. And you could say the same thing for our partners down to I-94 south of us in Chicago. The Chicago Bulls come up to play the Milwaukee Bucks. They're the 1 seed. They're playing really good. They're unproven. A bunch of guys that really haven't proved a whole lot outside of maybe DeMar DeRozan. But a bunch of guys that are playing really well, and they're playing really well together, hitting some game winners. They come play Milwaukee, and after January 21st, they have a ton of games against Brooklyn and Miami and Chicago. Your thoughts on the Eastern Conference? Your thoughts on Chicago coming in? Your thoughts on what you think Chicago is going to be if you're a Bulls fan? They tweet me the standings after every win, so I have that to look forward to after every Bulls win, and make sure that they tell me that they're in first place. But anyway, your thoughts on the season, January 21st coming up, and then obviously the Eastern Conference as a whole.
Eastern Conference is getting a little better. I still give the edge to the Western Conference, just based out of due to respect, honestly, with the players they have. It's been a little bit rough with them with injuries, but a lot of those guys will be coming back. The Bulls is an interesting story because it kind of reminds me of like the Knicks last year. Maybe a little bit of like the Hawks. Maybe is a nice, better, comparison, just because it's like that young team, kind of a mix match of like a band of merry men, right? Like the Hawks went and got a bunch of free agents and surrounded them to, I know Collins was there for a while, but they surrounded little man, I forget his name now. Oh my gosh, I just forgot his name. Trae Young, thank you.
Yep.
Trae Young, and they made a run, and they made an awesome run. Obviously, had the big series against Philly, but this Bulls team kind of reminds me of that. Like, you don't really know what kind of team you're getting. They haven't played anybody, huge, necessarily, at least in the Eastern Conference, especially. They haven't played us. So, that's obviously the big test for them. Obviously, Brooklyn. Have they played Brooklyn?
I think they played them once, and it
was without James Harden, though, right?
Correct, and it came down to the last few seconds. But
right, you just went toe to toe with Kevin Durant. Let's just call it what it is. So you played Kevin Durant and some guys, and you barely squeaked that out, right? Yeah. So that shows me a lot of like, okay, you're here, but are you really here, right? Like it's kind of like Dallas to me, right, with the Cowboys, like. You've played all these trash teams, and then you lost to the Raiders on Thanksgiving, and then you lost to the Chiefs when Dak Prescott had one of his worst games possible, and then now you just lost to the confused Cardinals. So like it's just like a weird team for me. Not saying that they're exactly like the Cowboys, because they do have some good victories on under their belt, but again, once you've played the big dogs in the Eastern Conference, and I'm going to be honest with you, when you've played healthy big dogs in the Eastern Conference, that's the measuring stick. So whether it's January 21st or do you have in front of you the date on the neck? Like, what's their next time that they play the Bucks? After that, 21st?
I will get it in 1 second.
Oh, that's fine.
Actually, I have it March 4th.
Okay, so March 4th seems a little bit more like the meeting that I want to look at, because right now I don't know. What'd you say? January? What is it? 21st?
January 21st, March 4th, and then it looks like they finish up April 5th.
Okay, so I think
once a month.
January 21st could line up nicely where you have everybody back. Obviously, if Drew and Grayson and some of these other guys, George Hill, if they're back, obviously next week, then it's not a big deal. But like, I'm just wondering, what team are we really going to see January 21st? Are we still going to be kind of like trying to, gather ourselves after a lot of people have been injured? Is March going to be the day that maybe we get a Brook Lopez back? Obviously, that goes into our conversation about Boogie, why that decision was made. But obviously, I'll let you lead with that. But to talk about the Eastern Conference, I just think it's very top heavy. I really do. I think it's really just, obviously, in my opinion, us in Brooklyn. I think the Chicago story is nice. I do think that, hey, look, what they're doing is playing hard-nosed defense, and they're taking teams to the brink of, the fourth quarter, and sometimes they're getting some good shots off. I think DeMar DeRozan's found a new like fountain of youth. I feel like he's, back to the mid-range DeMar DeRozan that we love. And obviously Zach LaVine has always been amazing. Like, this guy just needed pieces around him. The guy's filthy. I've always liked Zach LaVine. Hated that he's in a Bulls jersey, but love Zach LaVine. Like, he's just a great player. He really is. So, and then you look at some of the other teams. I'm really not believing in the Knicks. I think they're a 6, 7, 8 bottom feeder. I think, obviously Indiana ain't going to be anything. They're going to be trading everybody away. I think, obviously, Charlotte is a very sneaky team that I think might take over for the Knicks in that 4 spot that we saw last year. Just that team that's just young and just ready to fight. anybody at any time for a spot. I just think they're way underrated. I really do. I think that is a team we got to watch for. Obviously the Heat, when they get their big two back, I don't know. Did they get Jimmy Butler back? I know
No.
Bam is still gone, but
Jimmy just hurt he was actually helped off the court the other day.
I was gonna say because he was back and now he just got hurt again. Oh my god!
With an ankle, sprained ankle. Yeah, sprained ankle.
All right, so we don't know what Miami is gonna be, but again, good roster on paper, good solid coaching by Spoelstra. So I think there's a lot of like solid teams. I just don't know if they're like, do they match up against the Suns? Like, I think the Suns are better than 3 of the teams in the Eastern Conference. Like, I think the Suns are like arguably the top 2 teams in the NBA. Honestly,
I agree.
You look at Golden State. Are they better than all the Eastern Conference teams? I think they match up really well against the Bucks and the Brooklyn Nets. I think they might be even better than the Brooklyn Nets, to be honest with you. So those are just 2 teams of the Western Conference. And that's the comparisons we're always going to make is, okay, the Eastern Conference, you probably can get out of there, right? You can, have a couple good big games, and then by the time you get to the Eastern Conference Finals, you're like, okay, it's Brooklyn, Milwaukee. The real test is going to be, okay, who's going to take on, the Splash Brothers when they're all healthy? And then you look at the Phoenix Suns, who are obviously strong roster, have the experience now. They have a chip on their shoulder. And, Denver is going to get guys back. And obviously the Lakers are still the Lakers. But Eastern Conference wise, I know I'm rambling here, but I just do feel like this is it's a good conference. I think there's a lot of teams that are going to make some noise, but I just do think it's top heavy.
The great thing about this show, Sanjay, is it's no BS. It's cut through BS. Right, so we let, hey, if you want to go, you go, and just keep going. And just a couple shout outs real quick over here on the chat. Tulio, watching from Brazil, go Bucks. Shout out to you, man. Thank you so much for tuning in. Tyler, my good buddy over here. He's talking about Chicago, Miami are the tier 2 in the East. And that was the next point I was going to make. When it comes down to it, I agree with him too. Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, say what you want about Kyrie. They've won championships, right? Kyrie Irving's won 1. Kevin Durant's got a few. Giannis, he's now a champion. They're the defending champions. Chris Middleton, Drew Holiday, those guys, Brook Lopez when he comes back. Chicago and Miami are not. Like, none other than PJ Tucker down in Miami. Kyle Lowry has 1. That's about it. When you look at Chicago, I don't think they have any on that team, as far as
technically, white dude, I forget his name. He's on the Lakers, right? So
you're right. One. Yeah. I know who you're talking. Yeah, Caruso, Alex Caruso.
Yeah, so he's got 1. And he's a great defender from them.
Yeah, so he's got 1. When it comes down to it, those guys, and Caruso wasn't the main guy.
Is a COVID one. So
I agree. It was the bubble. Yeah, I forgot it was the Mickey Mouse title, is what they call it. But those guys, in their defense, and for Giannis and KD and Kyrie and Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday, they've proven it on the big stage. They've proven it. They've gone there. Giannis went to Brooklyn. Chris Middleton hit the go-ahead game bucket that eventually would have won the series against Brooklyn. They went to Arizona, Phoenix, beat Phoenix, on the road, Game 5. The Bucks have proven themselves. Kevin Durant's proven himself his whole career. The Bulls haven't yet. They haven't. So until I see it, like Tyler says, they're on tier 2. I have to. Not just because I hate everything in Chicago, including their teams and their hot dogs and their pizza, but I have to put those teams below, record-wise right now. I understand they're better. They got a better record. But until you show me what's going to come next for that team, and like Tyler says, DeRozan has historically struggled in the playoffs, and Lonzo has never played in a game. They just are unproven guys, and they're fun to watch. DeRozan's been a star for them. He's a leading vote getter right now for the Eastern Conference for the guards. I think he's been tremendous, and Lonzo's fun to watch if you've ever watched him with the passes, and Caruso for a guy that doesn't look like he belongs in the NBA. Looks like he's at the local.
He's got game, man.
He's got game. He's got hop. He's got hustle, and I respect it. I like Billy Donovan. So, but until they go into the second round in the Eastern Conference Finals, if they get there and they go into other places and they win these games when it matters most, look, Kevin Durant, Giannis, Chris Middleton, James Harden, Kyrie, LeBron, they're coasting right now. It's January. It's the beginning of January. The Lakers maybe shouldn't be coasting because they're like the 7th seed right now in the Western Conference, but it's just one of those periods in the NBA where football's getting really important. So everybody wants to focus on that. And then they look at NBA, and every NBA game becomes important because there's not as much football going on. Oh, there's not enough meaningful football happening until the playoffs start. So I'm okay with where they're at. The Milwaukee Bucks as a whole. We're going to transition real quick to another Bucks topic. We'll end on the Bucks topic with this, kind of like his Bucks career last night, Sanjay. I think Shams had this tweeted out before the game was ended, or it was right when it was ending.
Close, yeah.
Your thoughts on DeMarcus Cousins being waived? It was made official by the Bucks about an hour ago officially, but your thoughts on Boogie Cousins being waived?
I'm so angry, man. I just don't understand what. I really wish they would get. I mean, they don't owe us any reason. It's their team, it's their roster, whatever. But I just don't understand, what the thought process really is. I mean, I loved it. I loved the fact that he was he was aggressive. He obviously had some game that was just kind of developing. Like, it was like, give this guy a couple extra, like another month, and this guy might be like, I don't know, 75% of the, all-star stud that he used to be. I don't know. Yeah. I wasn't thinking he was going to be officially a Sacramento, stud, but like, it just seemed to me like that it was just such a, like, they're saying so they can make a trade at the trade. I mean, you could cut Thanasis. I know he's got this like voodoo like on this team where you cut Thanasis, you piss off Giannis kind of thing. I don't know what that is all about, but in my opinion, you could cut Shemi, you could cut him, you could cut Malasvili. I don't know. I mean, there's plenty of other roster spots that are not being taken by a guy that is so much more valuable to the team. I'm not saying he's like the MVP, but like he's definitely a guy that you were using pretty frequently in your lineup, and the fact that you're giving Bobby a break, and obviously this news has to either be like one of those like bittersweet things. It's like either, oh, we lost Boogie, we're getting so excited about this guy. Oh, does that mean maybe we're getting Brook back? I don't freaking know, because like we've not heard any updates, because the Bucks don't give any updates about Brook or any of the injuries that we've had previous. I mean, obviously the Dante one was so quiet, obviously, and then they brought him back, which is awesome. But just so pissed off. I texted like 3 of my friends, and I was just like, man, I just cannot believe the thought process about this. Now, if we go and trade for like Cam Reddish or something or whatever, I don't even know, like some name that's just like what, then fine. Then this is all well and good. But I just think a guy that was contributing on the boards and getting some good minutes and obviously producing as of late with points, just didn't make any sense.
Yeah, the first thing I had the game off. They lost. I turned on, me and my fiance, we turned on, we're catching up with Game of Thrones with everybody. We're like 5 years behind everybody.
Yeah, whoa, bro. Like, soccer, there's a lot of spoilers out there. You probably don't know what's happening.
We're catching up, so I turned it on. I'm getting it all set up. The Bucks game had just ended, and I look at my phone, and I had to make sure, man, because on Twitter, you get like duped into like fake Twitter profiles, and I'm like, there's no way this was the Bucks game just ended. How is this coming out? Like, yeah. So then I looked for the check mark from Shams, and sure enough, and my first thought was it's a money saving technique.
Yeah, I saw the tweet. I saw the message here too. I'm like, okay, all right. Yeah. I understand money. That's always a big thing. Sure.
Yeah, and I could, but the thing about that is you said, as not you, ownership, they said in the offseason when they didn't sign PJ Tucker, it was too expensive. We lost so much. I don't know if you've ever been to the Pfizer. I don't know how you're losing money, to be honest with you, because your ticket prices, which they raised the prices again today. I don't know if you've seen that. They've raised them.
I did not see that.
Yeah, they've raised them for season ticket holders by I think 7%, 8%. It's a lot. Whatever it is. So my first thought was like, well, they're obviously trying to save money, because like Tyler says in on Facebook, is that they're saving money by cutting him because his contract was guaranteed at midnight on Friday. So that's, my first thought. Then my second thought was, and this is the optimistic part of my brain here, Sanjay. I thought, well, I just saw them post a video yesterday. Was it yesterday or the day before? Brook Lopez was at practice, and he was working out. He had shooting around. He was participating in some drills. So that was my first optimistic thought, was he's got to be close. Like, he's got to be closer than maybe they're thinking, or maybe than they thought. So they're not going to guarantee that $2 million for Boogie Cousins throughout, till the end of the season. And they're going to have Brook Lopez. But then I was like, well, if you get Brook Lopez back, Boogie Cousins is a great person to come off the bench and eat up minutes and kind of be that enforcer on the court for you. So I to me, it still doesn't make sense, even if Brook Lopez does come back. Now, I will give John Horst the benefit right now of the doubt because he has proven he's the executive of the year last year. He won an NBA championship. I don't want to sit here and play
Did he
armchair
really get
GM.
executive of the year?
Yes.
I did not see that. Holy crap.
And
okay.
I don't want to be that guy to him, but I am very curious at what the hell this was about. Number one, you're paying him $2 million for the course of the rest of the year, over the year. I think Tyler said it was like 1.4 something left for the rest of the year. You got guaranteed guys on this roster that would make a better towel boy. No offense to them, but then what are they making in the NBA right now? Semi Ojeleye doesn't do anything for you. Rodney Hood has done really barely nothing for you. I mean, these guys aren't contributing. I understand they're on contract or guaranteed deals. We are a winning basketball team now. You won the NBA championship last year. The target is on your back. You have Giannis in your back pocket for the next 4 seasons. The window is now, no matter what is going on with injuries or guaranteed contracts or any of that. Your money, your window is right now, no matter what. Do what you can to compete. I guarantee you, if this was in another team, another market, that's not happening because I don't think LeBron would let it happen. I'm sure Kevin Durant would voice his, displeasure if in the fact that a guy that got you 15 and 10 and then was cut, he's averaging 9.1 and 5.5 or 5.8 rebounds per game. That's pretty darn good, especially when Brook Lopez does come back. Who's your backup center? Because they don't have one. And I understand people are saying out there, well, he's a liability on defense. He doesn't rebound the basketball. Yeah, fine. I mean, I don't care about that right now. He's not going to be my starting center. I just want him for this season, get me through this season. They've won a handful of games since he joined the team. He expressed his love for Milwaukee to Zora Stevenson after a game, or it was before a game. So I don't care what the money situation is. I want him to be back with the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, there's the opportunity that if he does clear waivers, which I doubt he probably does, in the event that he does, he could still always come back to Milwaukee. My other thought process real quick, and I'll bounce this off and you can go right after this. February 10th is the trade deadline. So we have about a little over a month until the trade deadline. I don't know. John Horst mentioned it to Adrian Wojnarowski last night that it leaves open a roster spot. I got to imagine, and this is where the optimistic part of my brain is letting John Horst, the jury's still out for me, at least on this topic, decide if he does, like you said, Cam Reddish or, Miles Turner or Sabonis. I don't know. Throw a name out there, whoever you want. If he does make a trade, then I understand what the release was for. But if we don't make a trade and we're just opening that roster spot, I know Langston Galloway was signed today and Twitter lost their mind. He's just a COVID exception, part of that roster. He's not taking Boogie's roster spot. But your thoughts, if there is a trade, I mean, is the jury still out for you on this, or are you still like throwing darts at the wall mad?
Oh, I'm always going to be throwing darts. I hate that. I'm a GM in my head, and I'm like I'm a, what do they call it? Armchair GM.
Armchair GM. Yep.
Yeah. So here's the thing though. By the way, shout out to, what's his name? Ricky Rubio for tearing his ACL, because that's the guy that I said we should trade for.
You did. You put a hex on him.
I did. I must have. But look, I know that what Tyler was saying, like maybe they could bring him back. Maybe they had some backdoor conversation. Look, man, we got to pay you a lot of money in 2 days. Maybe we'll just cut you. We'll come and bring you back in like a week or two. But that also leaves the open table for Brooklyn to be like, yo, we'll offer you $10 million, or what? I mean, whoever it is.
Miami, while Bam's healing.
Right, yeah, in Miami, right. Anybody, who says they can't use a big, right? Like
everybody needs one.
Teams. I mean, so as far as the guy as far as a big name guy, I don't know what if it even is a big name guy. If you're trading for a role player, some guy that I've never heard of that plays 20 minutes a game, not even 15 minutes a game, and gets you 7 rebounds and 10 points. Sorry, that doesn't do it for me. Honestly, there's something about the mentality of a Boogie Cousins, because he was a superstar at some point, that you just can't mirror on the court. He knew what his limitations were. He knew that his expectations were, look, just be on the court and produce what you can. We're not asking you to be Giannis. You're not trying to get 35 minutes and get you 40 points. That's not you anymore. And the fact being is that he still had that swagger and confidence that, look, I destroyed this league when I was in my prime. And I still have the tools, maybe I'm a little slower, whatever, but I still have the strength and the give me up, the shot, the hook, whatever it might be down low, that I can still produce in this league. And that's just something you just can't mirror. And from a guy that was your bench, he wasn't even your starter. I mean, yeah, he started a couple games because of, whatever, but that's just your bench guy. Like, that's why I thought we were so deep. I'm like, oh, when Brook comes back, what Brook are you going to get on March 1st? I saw that message too. What Brook are you getting? What Brook are you getting even if he comes back earlier? I don't know. And why would you even want to get him into 30 minutes a game anyway? Fresh, keep him fresh for the for the playoffs, 15 to 20 minutes, just ease him back in. Maybe end of March and into April you can start ramping him up a little bit more. But what's the whole point I'm really angry about is you went into this offseason to say Giannis, we're trying to get Giannis outside of the 5 position. That's why you brought Shemi for some stupid reason. I don't even know what that is. And you get a Boogie Cousins. It's a weird thing because I don't want to see Giannis at the 5 too much, unless the occasional lineup, in mid game is fine. Whatever, have him run with the, third team, second team, whatever it might be. Sure. But I don't want him playing 17 minutes at the 5 position and exuding his energy. Unless it was the finals, which I'm fine with, and you're beating up little, weak ass DeAndre Ayton, sure, that's fine when you're doing that. But before that, no, I don't want him doing that against KD. I don't want him doing that against, whatever his name is, Embiid. I don't need him being a 5. I need him to be the best 4 there has ever been in this game. I don't want Tim Duncan being the number 1 power forward in the game's history. I want Giannis to be that. And the fact that he does play almost 17 minutes at the center position is annoying. So, yeah, I'm still a little pissed off about this. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I love it because I am too. And like Jake drops in over on Facebook, Horst has earned our trust. Let's wait and see before we overreact.
I am very patient.
We both agree. Yeah, we both agree with that. I think the initial, first off, the timing, timing is everything. That was awful last night, whatever that was. And again, it could have been, they could have had something worked out with Boogie and his agent and said hey, as soon as this game's over, we're going to put you on waivers. If you clear waivers, you're coming back, type of thing. And who knows? We'll see. Time will tell. But the timing was really awkward. It was weird.
Tyler, check out Miles Turner's shooting percentage. It's actually not good. I know he's your dream acquisition. Just look at it deeply on Miles Turner. I'm not trying to get in an argument or anything. I'm just saying I like him because of his age. I really do. But there's a lot underneath that's kind of let's back up a minute here.
I think Horst, and I really do. I really think there's a trade coming. Like I said,
I'm sure there is.
February. Let me ask you: is February 10th seem early for a trade deadline? I feel like it's early.
Well, October, November, December, January. I mean, that's 5 months. I mean, you only have March and April left.
I guess so. It felt like it was always towards March.
Yeah, no,
whatever. It is what it is.
It does feel weird because we haven't had a full roster, and like you said, you looked for the season to start in December, right?
Yeah,
so
that's good.
To you, that seems like it's early, but to everybody else, it's well.
Yeah, I got to check myself every now and then. Moving on, we'll close a chapter on this, like Jake says, Sanjay.
Myself, hey, Jake, we'll come back to the show after the trade deadline. We'll see what the hell trade we did instead of having Boogie Cousins.
We absolutely will see. Transition real quick. We got about 15-ish minutes or so. You guys break down if you're not, if you missed the opening of the show, if you're looking for the best Packers breakdown after a Sunday or Monday. Do you guys go on Monday during the game or do you just?
We didn't on the Lions game because all 3 of us were going to the game.
Okay. So I wanted to ask that before.
That was the one thing that we didn't do. Otherwise, normally we will do a show. We've never really had this situation because
I guess it's really
on
never
the road for a Monday night game. So TBD.
Anyway, if you're looking for the X's and O's and the Packers breakdown, you can get it here, but I would highly recommend the Freezer podcast every Monday on the Game On Wisconsin YouTube channel, Facebook, or Twitter. You guys didn't get a chance to talk about this because you broke down the game, the win over the Vikings. Packers clinched the 1 seed. We all know what's coming up in the playoffs. real quick on your thoughts on Hub Arkish this week.
Oh, sure.
Making the comment, I believe it was on 670 The Score down in Chicago. I'm paraphrasing something about he doesn't like Aaron Rodgers. He's a jerk.
Right.
He hurt his team in the offseason, whatever. We all know what he said. We all heard what he read or what he wrote. Your thoughts on that particular situation?
Well, before I heard like the national media talk about it, which is, obviously where it's gotten to now, I was kind of just like
every day.
I was just like, oh, just another Bears guy just trying to, show his hate. Like we've already seen this before. But then I looked at it on a different level of like obviously the AP voting and the sanctity of the vote, right? And he obviously broke the trust and the validity of that vote. Like you're not supposed to, like, the fact that you said that you weren't going to vote for this guy already before the summer of like, the season, like that already made you like very ineligible to be on this committee. And I'm not, I know that everybody gets the cancel culture, and I'm like, I'm not even about that, dude. I'm from Wisconsin. We don't have cancel culture here in Wisconsin. I'm just gonna be honest with you. So we're just a bunch of hillbillies up here. I'm just telling you right now. So I just think like in that case, what he did against all the other 49 voters, I feel like he should be taken, like the vote should be taken away from him after this season. Like, fine, you know what? Make your stupid vote. We know if there's 49 votes for him, we know who the one is, and that's you probably. Granted, I know he said that there's like a few other guys that he knows that feel the same way. Whatever. But you've set a precedent now. Now you've started this collusion where he was like the guy that like, rose up and stood against the masses and like said something that they were all saying, but they knew they couldn't because they had the vote. And now they feel like, oh, well, shit, I guess if he's going to do it, why don't I do it? Because we're going to use a different subjective look at the vote and at the award. Now, I will defend Habarkish in one little moment, and I can't believe I'm doing this because I think he's scum. But the fact being, when you look at a race, an MVP race, whether it's the NBA or whether it's the NFL, whatever you want to say, sometimes we always do this just subconsciously, right? Like we always look at the surrounding factors of a player. Like if it's a close vote, if it's between Brady and Rodgers, right? What happened? Well, this guy, he did it with a coach that was, fired, like John Gruden, right? Like let's just use Derek Carr, for instance. If he was in the running, you'd be like, well, he hasn't had a head coach. He lost a wide receiver because he, basically killed someone. You lost another guy, another player because he was stupid with drugs. You lost this, and you have an interim head coach, and somehow you rose from the ashes and brought this awesome season to this point, right? There's that way of looking at it, and you're like, well, those were all surrounding factors behind this guy's campaign. And then you look at Brady, nothing's wrong. He was there, he did everything right, he had a great season, and he's got his team in the playoffs, but he didn't have anything going against him. He didn't have any adversity. Oh, wait, he did lose Chris Godwin. He lost, AB now. Maybe there's a little bit to him. But then you look at those like sub parts of the news of that team or that player, and you're like, maybe I should factor that in my vote. But the problem is we need to know what is the vote really clarifying. Mm-hmm. Like what is the most valuable player? His circumstances, his outside circumstances he didn't have any control of, or is it literally the stats and, the fact that he has the best stats, or if he even does have the best stats of the season as a quarterback? At that point, like they always say, just have a robot do it then. But I don't know. I just don't like that it has come to this point about his MVP candidacy, because now you've made this like, if you're going to vote for Aaron Rodgers because he's the best player on a team that was obviously the best team and he had the greatest stats, then vote for him. But if you don't want to vote for him, then vote for Cooper Kupp. Vote for, Jonathan Taylor. Vote for Tom Brady. Don't vote because you don't want Rodgers to win, because then that just makes you completely false, and it makes you a joke. So that to me is what this guy has set the precedence now, as him coming out like this, because now you've just made every voter think, well, I don't really like that he's not a vaccinated player. I really don't like that he's a selfish prick that, chose himself over the team in the offseason. That all starts to play in the factor. But the fact is, he is the best player in the NFL season of 2021 from weeks, I don't even know, 2 to 17, because he hasn't stopped since that stupid game against New Orleans.
Yep.
What say you?
Yeah, I absolutely love what you just said. What it sounded like to me when I first heard it. So I live in the Milwaukee area, and sometimes when I'm bored, I'll turn on 670, and I've heard him before.
I
Make
have
great,
too. Yeah, I
yeah,
have.
I've heard him before, and Bears fans really don't like him, to be honest with you. A good portion of them don't.
He's like the Bears version of Bob McGinn. Like
Pretty
if you
much,
know Bob
honestly,
McGinn
pretty
is,
much,
like
yeah,
it's kind
pretty
of the same
much,
thing. But
pretty much.
anyway,
They're kind of they're old school. They're stuck in their ways. To me, he sounded like a guy, and Aaron Rodgers alluded to this on the ticker. You can see Aaron Rodgers called him a bum. He kind of alluded to this. He doesn't like him because he's unvaccinated. And Aaron Rodgers, obviously, if you tuned in, if you're a Packers fan, you probably tuned into a couple McAfee shows before over the course of the last 17 weeks, and you heard him mention it. McAfee asked him one day, he goes, you think you'll ever win an MVP? And Rodgers laughed and said no, like without hesitation. He said no based on his strictly his vaccination status. To me, when I heard those words from Hub on 670, the score down in Chicago, it sounded like a bitter Bears fan. Like that's what it sounded like, because the things that he was talking about are things that have nothing to do with his production or the lack thereof on the football field. He talked about him having the offseason. That's done. We are over that. That has been finished. That is
they've
concluded.
been repairing.
It's been great. According to Rodgers, it's been great.
Check out Adam Shine's podcast today.
I highly recommend that. I listened to it yesterday, and he says
from yesterday,
yeah, he says it in there. He says Ryan's met me in the middle. Everything's been kosher. Like it's great. So that part of it is taken away. Then he mentions what he did to the fan base. You're right. There was we were torn for a while. You, myself, Matt, Jacob, all the great folks at Game On. We all got in front of a microphone and we voiced our opinions at that time. And some of us were against Rodgers. Some of us were not. But when it came down to it, when he came to training camp, when he walks off the field and he's holding up the "I love you" symbol, we all fell in love, back in love, if any of us fell out of love with the player, because what he does on the field is the only thing that matters with the MVP award. I don't care what he does off the field. Obviously, I hope he's always healthy and safe and lives a prosper life after this. But the MVP award is what you do on the field. And what Hub did is he's taking away, and I forgot, there's a handful of players for the Pack. It might have been Kenny Clark. Somebody mentioned it. He's hurting people's chances at making money, because he also votes for the All-Pro and the All-Defense and all those certain awards. I mean, those are incentives for a lot of guys' contracts. And if you're holding grudges because of the team they play for, Aaron Rodgers goes to Soldier Field, Sanjay, and yells, "I own you." That's going to stick with you. If you're a Bears fan that's 12 years old or 72, like that's going to stick with you.
That's the spirit of the rivalry, man. Like the 90s, they used to break people's legs. Like they used to literally call people's like mamas out. Like that's what rivalries were back in the day. Like that.
And it absolutely, I completely agree with you. It should be. But to me, it sounds like, and not everybody in Chicago is like this, but to me, it just sounds like Hub was a guy that's just sick of Aaron Rodgers. Most Bears fans can't stand the guy.
I'm sure they are. Maybe get it right with their GM.
He's the boogeyman for them. But real quick, before we wrap this up, and you kind of alluded to it a little bit, do you think this hurts or helps Aaron Rodgers' chances? Do you think that they're going to kind of rally around Hub and be like, well, he's right, because what he did sucked? Doesn't matter that we voted for Adrian Peterson when he beat his child. It matters now because he's not vaccinated, and what he does on the Pat McAfee show. And he, Rodgers always drags the media. If you watch Pat McAfee, he calls them the mainstream media and how they like to change the narrative on him and whatever. So the media already doesn't like him for the most part. But in your opinion, do you think this hurts or helps him?
I just want to really quick add the apology from Hub Arkish the next day was just as bad as his comments.
It made it worse.
It was just the worst apology. It was more just calling everybody ignorant, and social media was ignorant. And the fact that he didn't understand why this became national media news. I'm sorry. You literally just broke your like validation as a voter. Like right there, you just broke the number one rule of voting as an AP voter is not to say anything. And
they're bringing him back too, by the way. The AP released a statement, I think like an hour before we went on, maybe 30 minutes, 6:30ish. I think the AP released a statement. They are going to bring him back. I don't know what they're going to do following year, like you said earlier, but he is.
You're saying for this season,
correct?
Oh, okay, yeah. I mean, it's whatever. But to answer your question, I think It is weird because when did Twitter come out? I want to know what the year. Someone maybe can find out the year that Twitter came out, because I would like to know if that lines up with the year that AP won his MVP. Because you're right, he won that MVP at the same time that he was accused of beating his child.
Yep.
And I mean, there was a lot of hard evidence on that. And Twitter or social media, as it stands today, would have absolutely, and I don't like using this word, but crucified him.
They would have, yeah,
in the face of the NFL. Okay, so I'm just saying the fact that this is the thing they're choosing to be like, hey, this is what we're gonna torch Rodgers for, is this his status of being vaxxed. I'm gonna tell you this right now. I got neighbors across the street that are not vaxxed. Okay, like, does that mean that they're horrible people? Like, the fact that you're choosing him because he's,
right,
this star human being. Now, granted, whatever he said on a press conference, it didn't what it happened, whatever. You didn't follow up, beat. Like, the beat didn't follow up on that. Wait, you said immunized? You didn't say vaccinated. They should have followed up that.
That was their fault.
They didn't. He didn't lie to the organization like Hub said. He didn't. The whole team knew.
He didn't fake a card like Antonio Brown.
Yeah, he didn't. Right. So if you want to call Aaron Rodgers a bad guy, fine. Whatever you want to do, that's your own prerogative. That's fine. That's your opinion. That's your opinion, right? Your choice, your words. He's saying, my body, my choice with why I want to be vaccinated or not. Completely great. No one's saying crap about it to Kirk Cousins or whoever else. And he missed a game that could have kept him in the playoff.
That's a good point.
So
that's a good point.
I'm sorry. The game that we missed against the Chiefs was against an off-conference team again in the middle of the year, where obviously still games matter. Yeah. But whatever you want to say about him as a human being, that's fine. He might be an asshole. Giannis is the greatest human being and player I've ever seen in my entire life. I've been let down by a lot of people. Tiger Woods, Aaron Rodgers, Ryan Braun, and I've now been, obviously, like I just said, Aaron Rodgers now, kind of. But Giannis has not let me down, right? If you want to call him the greatest Wisconsin athlete, go ahead. As far as this MVP chances, I think it's still good in the sense of there's still got to be more than half of the voters that are still like, yo, dude, this guy's the best player in the league. Like, let's just be honest. So, and I really just don't think Jonathan Taylor, as much as I love it, rep the Wisconsin. As much as I love his season, I just don't think you've lost last week. Like, you literally lost to the Raiders, and that was with him going with 100 yards. So, at home. So he wasn't that valuable. Like, he's valuable to your team, but like, he's not valuable in the sense of, you still lost the game. He didn't win you the game. So I think his chances are still good.
And let's call it what it is, man. Outside of Adrian Peterson, it's a quarterback award. Like, that's just what it is.
It is, yeah. It should be.
It's a quarterback. It's a quarterback award. I love JT. I've said it before. He's the best running back to ever come through Wisconsin, in my own opinion. But if you take JT off there, I still think they're good. Like, I still think they're a decent team. And no disrespect to him, no disrespect to Cooper Kupp. Those guys are phenomenal at what they do. Right. And they're excellent players. But if Derrick Henry didn't come close to winning an MVP when he went over 2,000 yards, I don't think Jonathan Taylor. I just,
That's what I'm saying.
And look what Tennessee's doing without Derrick Henry. They're the number 1 seed right now without Derrick Henry. And people clamored last year because they were mad Derrick Henry didn't get the MVP. They're a number 1 seed without that guy since what, November? I think it was, maybe even October. It's been a long time.
Did it without him.
Yeah, and he's coming back. So,
and Randy Moss had a better year than Cooper Kupp, and he didn't win the MVP. He had 25 touchdowns.
Yeah, that's insane. It's a quarterback.
He had 18 2 years ago. Did he not?
Yes. Yeah, he did. It is. It's a quarterback rule. And shout out to all the comments coming on. Jake, a good friend of mine. He's actually a Bears fan, and he's calling it like it is. Rodgers MVP. Only other person is Kupp. Hopefully voters get it right. We agree with you. But if you're a Packers fan, kind of like we're all Bucks fans, MVP is nice. We need a championship. In order to get to a championship, the Packers are getting some key players healthy at the right time. We just got a few more minutes. We're going to wrap it up with the Lions coming into, or the Packers going out to Detroit. Your thoughts real quick. I'll let you finish up the show. The rest versus the rust. Are you expecting starters to play, and then throw in a score prediction there at the end for you?
I'm all about rust. I don't believe in rest. I think I fully stand with
you.
our number one receiver. If you're scared, go to church. Like
Yep.
I don't believe in resting players. I mean, if it was Rodgers that he was still kind of iffy on the toe, I would have said rest him. And obviously with that, it kind of comes down to Devontae too, because like why do you need to throw Devontae out there? So, but he's healthy, and I think you just there's something about bringing momentum in the playoffs. I think there's maybe it's not even momentum. It's just knowing that you can have like some fluidity to the offense. You still haven't really proven to me that you can score in the first quarter and show me that you can like stay consistent throughout the first half, even too. So I'd like to see that against a team that's, they've got some high hopes too. That the Lions are playing tough, man. So they're not going to give you some slouch team like the Vikings gave us. So, I want to see it out there. And if we can potentially have some of these guys back, like Bach, or I don't know what Ja's status will be with COVID, but or Josh Myers, if some of these guys can come play, why not play with the number ones and just get a couple series out there? I don't want him playing the whole game. Let me just preface that with, I'd like to see Jordan Love at least in the second half for sure, if not 3 quarters, if you're only going to give Rodgers 1. Like if we start out with the ball and Rodgers does like a couple series that way, sure, let's do it. But I'm all about rust. And as far as prediction, this is weird. I picked us to lose because I didn't know I didn't know if we were gonna have first off, they didn't state that they were gonna officially play him or not, and we didn't know if he was gonna practice. So I picked us to lose because I didn't know what Packard roster was gonna be on the field for the most, and I do feel like they could beat Jordan Love. I mean, they played pretty well against Russell Wilson. So God, I can't believe I'm saying this on 2 shows. I have us losing this game only for the sense of the fact I don't know really like who's going to be playing. If it's Jordan Love, he's going to still play with Javon Winfrey and guys like that. So the Lions play with pride, man. They still want to eat kneecaps and stuff. So I just think they're gonna want to really Campbell. Play. Yeah, right. They're gonna play well on their own turf and for their fans. So I'm gonna just pick this one as a loss. I think it's gonna be close though, 28-24. We lose this game in Detroit. So there you go.
Yeah, it's a weird situation. And talk about history repeating itself. The Packers had the number 1 seed clinched in 2011. Before the last week of the season, and that's when we saw the Matt Flynn game. I think that anniversary just passed us. And Matt Flynn or Aaron Rodgers sat. Matt Flynn played the whole game, and he made like $15 million after that offseason. And now we're playing the Lions again with the number 1 seed clinched. I agree with you. I say play. Everybody talks about injuries. David Bakhtiari got injured in practice last year. I mean, you can literally get injured at any point. Yeah.
Devontae said you could get hit by a car tomorrow. What does it matter?
You can't play scared. You can't be scared like Devontae, like you just said. If you're scared, go to church. Aaron Rodgers practiced today for the first time on a Thursday since October. So I think you're going to see at least a half. And right after the game, after the post game against the Vikings Sunday night, Devontae Adams, Aaron Rodgers, they were all, we're playing. I think you're going to see David Bakhtiari make his debut, and I think it only may be a quarter or 2, but I think those competitive game reps, people call it game shape, they're important. Timing is important, especially at the left tackle position. Ja is still on the COVID list, so I don't think we're going to see him. What sucks is he's going to have that shoulder for the first time in action, probably at Lambeau when it's 10 degrees. So that's a little worrisome, and you might get Josh Myers back, if not this week.
Right.
He's practiced all week. He's projected to practice again tomorrow. He's probably going to be back in for the playoffs, if not on Sunday. So you are getting guys back at the right time. It's a super strange game, like you said, to predict, because who the hell knows who's going to play? And who knows? It could be on the first drive, Sanjay. There could be a guy that comes up gimpy, and then Matt LaFleur's like, nope, everybody's out.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So it's
the Jordan Love show for the rest of the day.
It's weird.
Exactly.
Like, I agree with you. I think the Lions win, and it's a pride game for them. And I know their hashtag is one pride, but this is a prideful game for them. They know Green Bay has absolutely nothing to play for. They know that. Like, that if they go in and demolish the Lions, I mean, that's bad for that franchise going into an offseason, which is going to end up being a top 2, top 3 pick. So they got obviously high hopes for their offseason, but I do think the Lions win. I think it's something like 24-21, 24-17, something like that. Jared Goff, I think, might play. I think he
wants to, apparently. But
yeah, he wants to.
It'll be the Tim Boyle show.
Tim Boyle versus Jordan Love. Could you imagine that? That would
2 Packer quarterbacks on the same roster at some point last year.
That would be something. Unfortunately, I could keep going on and on talking with you guys and talking to Sanjay, but that's going to be it for the show tonight. If you guys were tuned in on the live feed, thank you so much for all the comments, all the Bucks comments, the Packer comments, some Hubarkish comments. I do appreciate you guys. We're live every Thursday at 7 p.m. Like I said at the beginning of the show, you can follow Sanjay on Twitter at Sanjay X Murthy. That's Murthy. Don't forget, Game On Wisconsin is wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Google, Spotify, all that great stuff. You can also follow us on social medias at Game On WI. And then if you're really bored and you just want to follow everybody, hop on and give me a follow at Brandon_Snide, and I will chat with you and I will talk to you guys. But for now, we got to leave, Sanjay. We'll be back in a couple weeks. You guys have a great night. Happy New Year as well to everybody. The first show of the new year, and Happy New Year. Hope everything is going well for you guys, and we'll talk soon. Talk to you later.